Hello guys, and welcome back. This will be the 11th update for this tutorial, and I was a bit unsure what we should do next, so I asked you guys, and you answered, both on YouTube and on Discord. But there was clearly more on the YouTube poll, so that one will be the winner. Don't worry guys, we'll get to enemies soon enough. So this episode will be about game states, and how they work. But as usual, a quick recap from the last episode, and then we're off. We sure added some much needed part of a platformer game last episode. Gravity and the ability for the player to jump. By adding just a few new variables, we could store all the needed data to allow for our player to jump and to feel the gravity. We also changed our update position method to work with our new code. Piece by piece, we added the new functions in. First by checking the X direction for collision and then to place the player next to the obstacle, compared to before where we just stopped if the next move would be inside a tile. We also applied this new logic to our Y direction. Before, when we checked the new position the player wanted to go to, we checked the changes in both X and Y at the same time. Now we check just one of them at a time, which makes our lives a lot easier. We then tried out the gravity, and by increasing airspeed we can achieve a gravity feel to our game. And with our new ability to jump, we also added the animations for it. And that, my friends, is our last episode in short. Now, let's begin a new episode. How will we structure our game with a menu? Will we need to draw it over the current view and have many if brackets depending on where we are in the menu? What about the settings menu as well? Will we now add even more ifs? No, we will not. We will use Gamestates, and we will use something called enum to do this. It's a clever way of storing data that we wish to keep track of. Kinda like our constant class, where we store values and then get them. Our enum will have constants that corresponds to our game states, such as menu, playing, level select, and settings. We will start with just the menu and playing for now. And depending on what game state we are in, we will only render and update that part of our game. No need to draw the playing part if we are in the menu and vice versa. We will switch between these two states with our keyboard for now. Buttons we will add later. We will begin by adding a new package. This package will contain all of our game states, and we're just gonna call it Gamestates. So let's create our menu, and we're gonna create our playing. So in our menu, well, we have the menu, and inside our playing, we're gonna have the playing scene that we currently have inside our game. But we just wanna create these two classes first, and then we're gonna create our enum. So right click, new, enum, and we're gonna call this game state. And as you can see, it says public enum, game states is a little tilted. It's gonna be very simple. In here, we're gonna say that we want a playing, and we want a menu for now. As soon as we're done declaring how many constant we want, we just add a semicolon at the end like that. Just a quick FYI before we continue, there's far more functionality to enums than we are going to use today. You could add values to each of these constants, but we're just gonna need to use the very bare minimum that a enum provides. So just know that there's far more functionality to an enum that we are going to use in our game. Now, let's continue by adding a public static game state, and then we're gonna call it state is equal to menu. We're gonna start with menu. And that is pretty much all we need to do in here. And now, let's head over to our game class, and in here, for our update and our render, we're gonna add switches inside them. So let's just add a switch, and then game state dot state brackets, and with a enum, when we do a switch, we get a little yellow line, and then we can go add missing case statement, so we don't have to type them out. And now, depending if it's in menu, we're gonna menu dot update. We don't have it yet, but update. And for our playing, we can just take this and place it inside our playing. And remove that for now. And this is how the game state works. If we are in the menu, we're only going to update whatever inside our menu bracket. If we are in the playing state, then we're only going to update what's inside our playing states, and so on. And the same goes for our render. So we can just copy this, place that there, and switch like so. And now we will only render and draw the game if we are in the playing, which is what we want. And we're gonna need to add a few more of these switches. We're gonna add them, for example, in our inputs, both the mouse inputs and keyboard inputs. There's no need to go to our menu with our keyboard inputs if we are in the playing and vice versa. So there's a few more places we're gonna add them, but that will come later. Now we should actually go back to our menu and playing class. And our menu will have a render just like our playing will have. It will have an update just like our playing will have, and so on. So the best way we can go about this is to go in our Gamestates package and add a new interface. And we're gonna call this Statemethods. And an interface is just a collection of methods that we want each class to create if they implement this interface. It's a nice way of knowing that we won't miss any methods because we're implementing an interface, and all methods inside this interface is gonna have to be created in that class that we're going to use. And if we do not implement all those methods, we're gonna get an error and we cannot start the game. So it's a great way of making sure that throughout your project, whatever class that implements this interface now must have all these methods in it. And all these states that we have will need a public void update. We need to update the game somehow, so all state classes will have a update method. And this is all we have to do to make sure that they implement this method. And they also need to implement a public void draw with a graphics G input. And we need to import the class here as well. And as you can see, we can also make sure that they take in some type of value in that method. And there's a couple more methods that we need to add. We need a public void mouse clicked and mouse moved, the mouse, etc. So mouse clicked, a public void mouse pressed. We also had a public void mouse released. And we also had the last, which was a public void mouse moved. And that's all for our mouse, but we also need a for our keyboard input. So public void key pressed, public void key released. But we need a mouse event for all our mouse methods. So mouse event E, mouse event E, mouse event E. And for our keyboard, we need a key event E. This just goes faster than to type it out ourselves. Like so. So now every class that implements state methods is gonna have to create these methods. And of course the methods will be different in each class, but they all need these methods. They don't have to use them all, but they have to create them. So maybe the playing class will not use mouse moved, but it will use mouse pressed and released and so on. And menu, well, they don't care about the keys maybe. We don't know yet, but we know that they need to import them, otherwise we're gonna get an error. So all we have to do now is to go to our menu and say implement state methods. And then we're gonna get a little error here that says that we need to implement this, and we click add unimplemented methods. So now our menu will have to import everything that the state method interface is declaring. And if we were to add one more, public void test, just testing, and then saving, our menu would now have an error. So we need to implement the new method throughout all classes that implements this interface. But we don't need this method, just to show that we do one change here and then it makes sure that we do it everywhere else where this is in use. That's why we have a interface. What we need to do now is to move the player object as well as the level manager object into our playing class. So let's start by just copy that and place it right here. And it actually got imported for us. Perfect. And now is the time where we move a lot of code from our game class into our menu and also playing class. We can actually copy this method. We're not going to remove this method. We're going to need this method, but we won't have these lines of code. But let's move that in here. And let's remove it. We will remove it in our update and our playing. Let's see. We can actually copy this and move it into our playing as well. And we won't need the playing here. We're not going to remove this method. We're going to keep it, but we're going to change what this is, so we can might as well remove it. And I think that's all we need to remove. And actually we can remove this and also that. But now we need to create our menu and our playing objects inside our game class. So right up here, we add a private playing and a private menu. And we need to import those two. We have to, there's something called menu in java.avt. Just make sure you import the menu in our Gamestate package. And in our playing class as well as our menu, we will need to have a constructor, but we will have the same type of inputs into our menu as well as our playing, and that is the game class. We're going to need to access the game class from our Gamestates. So in our package here, Gamestates, we're going to create a new class and we're going to call it state. Gamestate state. And this state class will have a public state. And this state class will be the superclass for all our game states. So we can store a few values in here that we know that we're going to have in all of our game states. So for example, we will need a private game, and we need to import that. And our state will need to take in the game and say this.game equals game. And most likely we will need a public game get game. We might as well create this getter. I'm pretty sure we're gonna need it. Return game, like so. We're most likely gonna add more in here as the game progresses. But now let's put it all together. So playing extends state, and it's asking us to create the constructor. And we do that, and then we can remove this generated comment section. But that's looking bad. It should be like this. Something like that. Perfect. And we don't need to change anything here. We're just gonna pass in game instead of this. And we need to actually init the classes as well. And my bad, it should be protected game, not private game. It should be protected game in our state class. Otherwise we won't be able to reach it, like so. And then scale, we might as well go game.scale and game.scale. Something like that. And then of course we need to implement state methods. We're going to get an error again, and then we just add unimplemented method like so. Perfect. Can actually put that at the very bottom. Looks better. And now we have the update, we have the draw, clicked, pressed, released, moved, key pressed, key released. Beautiful. So let's do the same for our menu class as well. So it implements, but it does not extends state. Then just add constructor. And we don't need to do anything more in this menu class. But let's take a look at the errors in our keyboard and mouse inputs. In here we already have a switch, but it's for the key code. But this entire switch, we might as well copy this or cut it and go to our playing. And it was keyboard released or key released. Playing key released, so go to key released. We place that there, and we might as well remove these uncommented like so. And instead of saying get game panel.get game, get player, players already existing inside are playing. So we just say player.setLeft false. Same here, as well as for space. And that's what we're gonna do for all our inputs pretty much. And let's go back, let's take this one, key pressed, go to playing, key pressed, and we remove that, and we remove that. Then we say player.setLeft equals true, player.setRight, player.setJump. It's looking good. And let's do the same with our mouse inputs. We don't have as much. We only have mouse clicked actually. So let's remove that. Go to our playing, and in mouse clicked, if the button is button 1, then we set attack to true, but it's player.setAttacking true. Alright, so now we have our inputs working in our playing class. And in our update method, we need to level manager.update. And then of course player.update. And the same goes for our draw, level manager.draw, and then of course player.render. And I think that is all we need to do in here for our playing. Yeah, looks like it. If we were to run this, we would get nowhere because first of all we have our game state set to menu and our keyboard inputs is not going anywhere. Same with our mouse inputs. So we need to solve that. And to do that, we simply add a new switch. But instead of switching what type of mouse event, we say switch game state dot state. And depending on what state we have, we are going different directions. So if it's in the menu, we go game panel dot get game dot get. We don't have a menu and a playing getter. So in our game class at the bottom, we say public menu get menu return menu. And we need one for our playing as well. Public playing get playing return playing, like so. Beautiful. Now in our mouse inputs, get menu dot mouse clicked, done. If it's not the menu state, we go do the same, but for get playing mouse clicked. And we are only using mouse clicked for now, so we don't need to worry about the other ones. All right. Now to our keyboard inputs, we do the same for key released. So a switch game state dot state, add missing case statements, menu game panel dot get game dot get menu dot key released. And the same for playing, get playing dot key released. And we need one for our key pressed, so key pressed, like so. And now we go into our different states depending on what state is active. So let's take a look in our game class real quick. And in our Windows focus lost, we're just gonna add a if game state.state is equal to game state.playing, meaning we're only gonna care if it's playing. If it's in the menu and we lose the focus, doesn't matter, nothing's gonna happen. But for our playing, we wanna do something and we wanna say playing.get player.reset direction booleans. So This is a little special one. We're never gonna care if it's in the menu, if we're in the settings, only if we're playing. Then we want to reset the direction booleans. Or we want to pause the game later when we have that type of functionality in our game. But for now, we're just gonna reset direction booleans. Perfect. And it's gonna be very simple here. We need to initialize our playing and our menu by saying menu is equal to new menu and this. Playing equals new playing this. And that should work. And for update, we simply say menu.update. Playing, we say, well, the same, playing.update. For drawing, menu.draw, playing.draw. But before we try this, we go to our menu class and we have nothing in here for now. We only have a empty class pretty much. But in our draw, let's say g.setColor, color.black is good enough, and then g.drawString, menu, and that's going to be at game.gameWidth divided by 2, and height, say 200. I think that's going to be a good position. It's not going to be exactly in the center, but it's going to start in the center. And in case we click a certain button, we go to our playing. So let's see what we should click. We say if e.get keycode is equal to key event dot v dot enter. So if we press the enter in our menu, we go to our playing by saying GameState.state is equal to GameState.playing. So now we're setting the state to playing, and if everything is working, we should enter the playing state. So let's try and see what happens. Alright, so we have a menu, very boring menu. It just says menu and small text. But if I click enter, we enter our playing scene. And everything seems to work. Yeah, beautiful. Now let's go to our playing class and just add a, where do we have it? Key pressed in case we press case key event dot vk underscore backspace, I think it's called. We're gonna say game state dot state is equal to game state dot menu. So if we click enter, when we are in the menu, we go to playing, and if we click backspace, we go to menu. So let's try that. Menu, enter the playing, backspace is back to menu. And this we can go back and forth. Nothing is happening, so there's no error. But if we do switch, we want to maybe cancel stuff going on in the playing, and next time we enter it, we might want to restart or load from a save. But this is the very basic foundation of how game states work. Just to go over how everything works with game states one more time quickly. Everything starts from our game class when it comes to rendering and updating. We use two switches, one for update and one for rendering. Depending on what game state we are currently in, we're going different paths. If we are in the menu, then we go into the menu state, which is now also a class. So everything that is about the menu state is in our menu class. But if we are in the playing state, then we go into our playing class, and everything that regards our playing, the player, enemies, level management, etc., 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 is done inside this class. And for our inputs, we are using switches that do pretty much the same as the one in the game class. Depending on what state we're in, we're sending the inputs to that class. And all of this is possible thanks to the enum. Alright friends, we're done with this episode. We will continue adding to our game states throughout this tutorial. For example, we sure need buttons for our menu, so that should come soon enough. keep an eye out for that one. Thank you guys for watching, and if you found it useful, smash that like button and also subscribe for the next update. If you would like to support me and my work, there's a link in the description below. Until the next episode, take care now and have a wonderful day. Cheers!